Right now is the most critical time for us to take back control of our food supply and become self-reliant by having our very own food forest. Transform your yard into a food forest and create a system of self-reliance that's easy and enjoyable with our friends at Food Forest Abundance. No matter where you're starting from, you can become more self-reliant. You can take your self-reliance to the next level by becoming a producer of your own food through growing and foraging. Learn how to turn your property into an income-producing source of economic self-reliance. If you're ready to go off-grid, click the link in the description and use coupon code FORBIDDEN for discounts on your very own food forest with Food Forest Abundance. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Scott Pace. First, a couple of announcements. Check out our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. This is where you find some of your favorite podcasts from our community featured. Forbidden Knowledge News is always available on Rokfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Our social media is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rokfin is where you get our premium content. You also get all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin for only $10 a month. Just go to rokfin.com/FKN+. That's ROKFIN.com/FKN+ to sign up now. Today I want to welcome Scott Pace. He is from Louisiana, working in Baton Rouge. He is an avid deer hunter and Bigfoot and Dogman researcher. Scott, welcome. How you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Yes, man, this is going to be excellent. We were talking a bit before, and you have incredible experiences and information about various types of cryptids, wildmen, and all sorts of strange creatures and high strangeness from the swamps of Louisiana. Now, this show is going to be near and dear to my heart. I was born and raised in a small town called Houma in South Louisiana. I lived there most of my childhood, my entire childhood through high school, and I still go back and visit every once in a while. Although I haven't had any personal, what I would consider paranormal experiences there, I do definitely know that it is a highly energetic state filled with stories of swamp creatures and paranormal phenomena, and it's got an extremely rich and dark history at times as well. But I love the state, and every time I go back, I love doing paranormal hunts or, going to ghost stores or things like that, just because there's so much of that stuff going on there. I love it. Now, if you've ever been to Louisiana, you can definitely feel the dense energy there, at least I can, or people who are somewhat sensitive. But this is going to be awesome, Scott. This is your first time on. Tell us just about your background and what got you into this research.
Okay, my name is Scott Pace. We're from right below the town below Baton Rouge in Gonzales, and our family is from North Louisiana and around the Coxsackie National Forest. And so basically what got me into it, I've had a lot of things happen to me over the years, mostly in North Louisiana, a few things down here, but mostly in North Louisiana. And it never came to fruition until 2019 when I had a face-to-face experience with a Dogman and a Bigfoot together. And they walked right up on me. And that's how I got into this huge research. And after that, it was just wide open. Myself, I'm a born-again Christian. Me and my wife have been married for 10 years now, been a Christian all my life. And so one of the biggest questions for me was, how does this fit into God's plan? And how does this here? Because if you believe the story of the Bible, all these things should be dead. They really should, because if the flood happened and truly did happen, then these things shouldn't exist. They shouldn't be here. So how did they get here? But since I was a little boy, I've had a lot of, I guess you would call, experiences with these type of creatures. Don't know why, but they're attracted to me. I can't explain that, but I've had a few experiences when I was younger, and we'll go into that, and I'll tell you about those experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start before we actually get to the big face-to-face encounter. How old were you when you started having experiences?
So about 9 years old, my grandmother lived in North Louisiana, and she lived way back up in the woods. And so during the holidays, I loved staying with my mom's mother, and I would go there and stay with her. And this one particular time was around Thanksgiving, and we were there and just visited with her, help her out with the chores and stuff, and play in the yard and all that. Never heard anything weird. Back then, they had open range. They had some cows walking around. They had cowbells on and stuff like that. And she always had 2 dogs, running around there. And this one particular night was cool. I remember in this old house that she lived in, that it was just an old, basically log cabin with board and batten on the side of it. And I heard something out there, and I said, Grandma, we were both sleeping in the back of the house and everything in 2 separate beds. And I woke her up in the middle of the night. I said, Grandma, I hear something out there. She goes, oh boy, be quiet. That's just a cow out there. You hear the cowbell. I said, no, this ain't a cowbell. I said, I heard it. It was walking around. It was big. So she went back to sleep. And not long after that, all of a sudden this figure comes inside this window. And this window is a 3x3 window. Okay. And this figure come in there, and it stooped down and looked at the inside the window. Now, the weird, creepy thing about this is that the house was up off the ground about 3 foot. Okay. So it had like 4 steps going up. So maybe close to 4 foot off the ground. And this thing had to stoop down to look inside, and his head was huge. And when I seen it, I screamed and hollered and jumped in the bed with my grandma. I told her, it's in the window, it's in the window. And she turned around and looked. And by that time, it had moved out of the window. It heard me scream, and it moved away. But that was my first encounter with one of these creatures or cryptids.
Right on.
And I was just a boy,
Yeah. Now, do you think that when looking back, do you think that might have been what type of cryptid, like a Bigfoot or maybe even a Dogman?
I think more of like what they call a werewolf type, because the way his head was shaped and everything, it was more of a flat face. It didn't have a long snout on it, but it was just huge. It filled up the whole entire window when it put its head inside it. So that's a 3x3. You see how big it is. But this thing actually swooped down like this and looked inside. It was looking inside the window, looking around in there. And so something to go along with that. It was scary for me. It was a traumatic experience, and I wanted to go home after that. I was telling, I said, call my mom, call my dad. I said, come get me. So I got to get out. I want to go home. I want to go home. And I remember my mom telling me a story that when her and her brother were younger, that they were playing in the woods, and it was behind their house and all that. And the kids roamed in the woods all the time. They stayed in the woods and all. And she remembers one time she was trying to help her little brother, which was my uncle, up in a tree, and they was trying to climb up in a tree, and he looked up, and they both froze, and there was something black up there in the tree. And it wasn't much bigger than them, but it was looking back down at them. She said, I don't know what it was. It was just black and hairy and looking back at us. Now, I don't know if that was a Dogman or a Bigfoot, but something in that air is definitely something there, a lot of cryptids and stuff. But the forest up there is so dense and so thick, you don't know what's going on. But she, back then they had what they call party lines and stuff like that. And so she had called my grandmother. We lived down here, below Baton Rouge, and she had called and couldn't get in touch with my grandmother. So she ended up calling her aunt, and that was my grandmother's sister-in-law. And she called up. She said, hey, where's Mom at? She said, well, she's staying with one of your cousins. Call over there. So she called over, and she told her, she said, I can't talk about it. She said, I just don't want to talk about it. Something happened, but I don't want to talk about it. So not long after that, they moved her from that house to another house. It was more wide open area, and it was another wooden house. It was a bigger house and stuff like that. So, for my mom and my grandmother to have that kind of experience, that they've had it too. But a lot of people up here, around that area and stuff, like even down here, don't talk about it. They won't tell you their experiences. They clam up real tight and won't say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, even my own father had an experience out in the swamp one time. It was actually a UFO experience, but he doesn't
Yeah.
talk about it. If he does, he's just like bringing it up at a party as a joke or something. But he really did experience this, so people don't really usually come out and talk about their experiences like this. But I'm glad that more people are now, like yourself.
Well, I want people to be aware and to know what it is and what's out there, and if they do have an experience, if they have a platform like this, they can come talk about. When I had the experience in 2019, it really, really shook me up. And I didn't know if I was going to have to go get counseling or, get Christian counseling. And first thing was who could I confide in? You could go talk to anybody and think you're crazy. If you go to talk to the police, you talk to the government or something like that, they're going to tell you to shut up and tell you it's a bear or something like that. So, but anyways, I go into my second experience I had, and it was moving up to 2009, and I was actually working for an offshore company in your hometown. And my cousin called me up. He said, "Hey," he said, "you haven't made up your deer lease yet." He said, "Are you going to hunt this year?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to come in and hunt." So I've been working a lot. I've been offshore working and stuff. It's like I couldn't come in. And so he said, "Okay." He said, "Why don't you come on up?" And I said, "Well, it's we can run dogs during the season and stuff like that. And what I do is I'll get you on a stand. If you don't see anything, we'll push the dogs and everything." So I said, "Okay." So anyways, I got up there and got up on a leaning tube that they had. A leaning tube is actually a deer stand that leans against a tree. You climb up in it and just sit. It's like a ladder with a seat in it. So I got in that and I was sitting there and waited. Well, nothing happened about 9 o'clock. So I called him up. I said, "Hey, man," I said, "what's going on?" He said, "All right." He said, "Look, I'm going to go get the dogs and we'll make a push and see if we get you a deer." So sure enough, he come out and I heard him let the dogs loose and they start running through. And then they were pushing toward me, but kind of to my left. And I said, "Wow, if a deer comes across, so there's a logging trail right there. So I'll go jump on that logging trail." So what I did is I got off the stand and went down this logging trail, and I was waiting. And behind me was the national forest, and it was wide, it was open in there. So I knew that if they crossed over out of our lease, there was a thicket in between there. I said, I'll catch something, right? So sure enough, here comes the dogs. They're coming right at me. So I got it. As soon as this thing crosses, I'm gonna shoot and get me a deer. All of a sudden I look and or hear something first, and it's running toward me. It's pretty big. So this must be a big buck. So I heard something coming toward me, and all of a sudden it stopped. And the dogs stopped and they quit barking and they turned around and went the other way. I said, "Oh, Lord, that's kind of strange." So I walked down this trail, and this guy's a creek bottom. It's a creek down there at the bottom. I'm sitting there on the top of this hill. I'm starting to walk down this logging trail. And all of a sudden I walk down this logging trail and I look in this thicket where the dogs had come through, and I see this hole. It's about 2 or 3 feet round like this. So I start looking at the time. I got a 30-06 that I hunt with. It's a Remington automatic. At the time, I only had a Tasco on. It was a cheaper scope, wasn't that great and everything. And I took the scope and I looked and I seen something. It was black, but it was brown with brown highlights, kind of red brown highlights. But it had pointy ears up here. Okay, and it had pointy ears, and the snout was coming out. But it was weird looking. It looked like a baboon to me. And I was like, "This is weird looking." So I stopped and I looked and I put my gun up like this and I'm looking through my sights. And I looked down, and back then I didn't wear glasses either. So I've gotten older since then. But anyways, that was 12 years ago. So I picked it up and I looked at it again, and this thing just squatted down. It was just looking at me and squatted down. I'm short, so I'm like 5'6", and this thing here was at least 6 foot tall, squatted down. So it was pretty big. And it was wide too. That opening was 2 to 3 feet, and its head was in there, and his shoulders was going beyond that. Wow. And so I easily started looking around, and I started getting this weird feeling, this really, tingly feel, this weird feeling. I said, "Oh no, this don't feel right." I said, "I don't know what that is, if it's a bear or what it is," but I couldn't tell. And I just backed out. I started backing out. And I went over to my cousin where they had a lay down yard where they had done logging and stuff in that area. So I walked back around that area and stuff, and I walked over and started talking to him. He said, "You didn't see that deer?" I said, "The deer never crossed." I said, "It might have went another way or something." I said, "It never crossed." He said, "Okay." I said, "All right." So anyways, we got out of there. I never told anybody that story. I didn't tell him about it. I didn't tell anybody else. I just kind of kept that to myself because, as soon as you mention that you see something in the woods like that, they're going to start, acting crazy and all that. So I just never, like a lot of people up there, I just don't tell people. Now, one of the things to go along with that is a lot of older people up there, they call that what they call a hide-a-behind. Now, hide-a-behind is something they got a tree and they'll start sticking a head around there and they hide behind a tree, called a hide-a-behind. They hide behind a tree and look back, and they use a tree as basically something to block you when they start walking and stuff like that, So,
now, was this particular creature covered in hair?
Yes, completely covered in black hair, all completely covered in what I consider long hair, kind of thick hair. Wasn't stringy hair like some creatures, like they say, Bigfoot might have stringy hair. You see the body and stuff like that. No. And his face had a snout on it. It was like a long snout, but the face was ugly, man. It looked like a baboon. It was weird looking.
Wow.
And I thought that since my research, I've talked to other people and just went online, started looking at pictures and all this stuff. Now, back then I didn't do anything. I just kept on until after 2019. But back then I didn't really, I just kind of blew it off, just whatever. It's kind of freaking me. So I just left it alone, but we hunted in there, never had no problems with stuff. Always had little weird things. Like you see a skull here on the side of the trail or something like that, or maybe some bones and stuff like that. You just think coyotes or whatever, But prior to that, we had a hunting lease up in what they call Sykes, Louisiana. And this is pretty interesting here. I had 2 accounts up there. One even I went up there by myself, and I actually went early. During that time, I worked shift work at another place. And so I got off early and stuff like that. So I went on up there before my dad and my cousin got up there. And we actually stayed in like a little hotel and stuff over there. And we'd go hunt. If we killed something, we brought our kill, back, and we would clean it and all that. But I was in a big old box stand. This box stand was probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 feet off the ground. It was just basically plywood, 4 sides, and you put a little roof on it, stuff like that. And I was sitting there and I heard these coyotes come across. Well, they must be chasing deer or something. So I started looking their way and kept on looking out there and didn't see anything. And all of a sudden I see this tall, like a man in a ghillie suit, start walking across behind them. And he's big. It's a big old boy. I said, God, no, that must be a big logger or something out here. But they had already cut the area. They had already planted trees, and trees were planted. And I'm thinking, that's kind of strange. It never really registered to me that it's weird that a Bigfoot would be walking with the coyotes. Okay. Never registered to me. But the coyotes had gone through, and all of a sudden, here it comes walking behind them. And when I looked at it, it was later on that I seen, and it's like all of a sudden it stopped in between this one spot. So we had, in our area where we hunted out over here, it was trees that already started growing there about 4 or 5 foot tall, pretty thick in there. Then there was a tree line. There was an open area all the way around it, like a road, just a dirt road, not a gravel road, just a dirt road all around it. And then the other side, they had started clearing and stuff like that. So it was still kind of knocked down and stuff. But this, what I thought was a big man in a ghillie suit who walked across. It never registered to me. And I was like, that's kind of weird. What's that dude walking around?
Now, for the audience that's not familiar with a ghillie suit, those are just like the big kind of netted camouflage that have made like leaves and stuff to help you kind of blend in, right?
Yes, and that's exactly what it looked like, a black ghillie suit. And it had some stuff on him, and it had this, looked like dreadlocks, really. Yeah. Kind of weird, like dreadlocks hanging down all over. Now, it was a big man. He was big. I mean, this guy was big, at least 7 foot tall, at least. He was a big dude. And I'm like, God, dog, what's this dude doing walking through? It never dawned on me until all of a sudden this thing stopped. I say thing now because I know what it was. It stopped and it made eye contact with me in that deer stand. I'm thinking, what in the hell? I said, how's that? You can't even see in here from the bottom. I said, how does this guy know I'm here? And it stopped. And it just turned like nothing, just like it was walking, stopped, looked at me, turned, and just kept on walking. I'm like, and it was starting to get dark. Then I said, oh, no. I said, I don't know what that is. I said, I don't know about this. I'm getting down. So I got down, and back then I had a 3-wheeler, cranked up my 3-wheeler, hauled tail, and got out of there.
Man, now, that is creepy.
One other thing yeah, it's really weird. This next one to get you. So I'm sitting in this one, what they call a tripod. And what is this tripod? It has a seat, has a roof over the top of it and everything. And I hear something walking behind me. So I got ready. So I took my safety off and I'm fixed to turn and shoot because it's like right here behind me. And I'm thinking, okay, it's either going to be a big hog up here because there are a lot of hogs up there, or it's going to be a big buck because I could hear it like this. Just walking. I'm like, God, dog, what is this? All of a sudden it stopped directly behind me. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I'm trying to get my rifle where I could turn around and shoot, but I couldn't get an angle on it. And all of a sudden a deep growl. Long too. I mean, I can't get that deep. It was just deep. I'm like, my God. And I just stood there, and all of a sudden it just walked off. And I'm like, okay. I've heard of bucks. Now I know a buck will stop and paw at you or hit the ground like this blow at you, but I never heard one growl at me. And I said, that's got to be a big pig or something else. But I never dawned on it that it could be a Bigfoot. It could be, something like that. So then some years passed by and everything, and we'd got a lease right across from our land up there in C60 National Forest. And so where we have family land up there in North Louisiana now, I really don't want to give the town away, but I'll just keep it like that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So I would love to, but I can't. I just can't. I don't want to do that right now. So anyways, we'd been up there hunting and stuff. Like 2017, it all really started for me. So we went inside there and we start clearing off the land and all that. And my cousin had brought his tractor over and started clearing out. And it got really thick by then. When we first got there, it was pretty thin and stuff like that, but it got real thick in there. And I sent you some pictures and stuff like that. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, I'll pull those up towards the end.
Okay, let's do that. So anyways, we started going around there and he started cutting. He didn't fill up his tractor with diesel before he went back and everything. He didn't have no diesel in there. So he's like, oh man, I forgot to get the diesel. So he said, come on, give me a ride back. So I have a golf cart. It's all jacked up and everything. It's got big wheels on it. So I rode him back and he got on his four-wheeler. So he gets the four-wheeler and he comes back with his diesel. We fill up the tractor and starts cutting again. He said, look, go around there and start looking and see if you see anything that we missed and everything. So I rode the whole lease that we had and everything, had trails all up in there. And all of a sudden, something told me, this is where it starts getting creepy. Something told me to stop. So sometimes I just think, I'm a Christian. I think, well, it's just the Holy Spirit. So I stop and I start walking around. So I start looking. All of a sudden, I look down. There's his footprint in the pine straw. And it's deep. When I say it's deep, it's like 2 to 3 inches deep. So I look at it. I'm looking around. I said, what in the world would make that big old footprint like that? Never thinking could be a Dogman or a Bigfoot, because I've never really seen anything like it, but with about 2009 when that little sighting had in that area. So I start looking around. So I start walking one way, all the way across the little trail we have right there. Don't see anything. Don't see any broken branches. Don't see anything. Come back to the other side. Don't see anything. So I'm like, God, so I took a picture of it. This is when I started doing basically research after this, and I started taking pictures and all that. So I went and rode around and all that and talked to them. Well, we hunted that lease, there again that year. And the next year they decided they want to make a trail between the national forest and our lease. And it was real thick in there. And so we went around, did the same thing again the following season. And while we were going, we were trying to cut through to the national forest. And when we went through and started cutting through, I started smelling something. They said, yeah, we've been smelling that thing. I said, well, what is that? I said, is it something dead over here? They said, we think it's one of our other cousins' dogs that probably went over there and died or something like that. So I said, man, that's really weird. I said, it smells like wet dog. It smells like urine. And it smells like death. A dead possum or something, something gets killed on the side of the road. You smell something like that. Weird. So anyways, he cut a trail through there and it came back. And then, I'm sorry, it was that same season. That's what these two stories go together. I said it was 2 separate seasons, but it wasn't. I'm sorry. Those two went together. And then, so anyways, he came back with his tractor, rode his tractor home. I picked him up. He came back and got his four-wheeler. So on the way back to the house, we were going back over there and it's about a quarter mile. I stopped and I heard something coming through the woods. When I say it come through the woods, it sounded like an elephant coming through the woods. It was breaking trees. It was breaking limbs. It was on my left side, but it's on top of a ridge. But I couldn't see what it was. I just heard it coming through, So I thought that was pretty weird. So I started telling him stuff about that. And I even showed my cousin, one of my other cousins, I showed him that footprint. He said, I don't know if that's a footprint. Don't look like a footprint. So look at the 5 toes here. Look how long it is, how big it is and everything. And he said, I don't know. He said, where's the other footprints? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I can't explain that. I'm just showing you what I have here. I said, look, we can step on the side of it. Our foot won't go down as deep as that. And he said, yeah. He said, must have been something awful big, made that. And he just took off. It was like, no big deal. It's like they don't talk about it,
Yeah.
So this comes, I've had a bunch of things happen in between there. So from 2017 to 2019, one morning it was really, really cold up there during hunt season. It had to be about November or something, because we always go up there and we cook for everybody. We like to cook jambalaya and gumbo and stuff, and everybody comes over. And so my wife cooks a really big gumbo and I cook a jambalaya when we go up there. So anyways, everybody was kind of pooped out. They stayed up late and everything. So the next morning I got up and it was cold. It was 30 degrees. So I asked everybody, so y'all want to go hunting, and they rolled over, went to bed and everything. So I said, all right, I'm taking off. I'm going to go shoot me a deer. So sure enough, I started going to this deer stand. I got off my golf cart and I started walking to this deer stand. Well, it's a long way back there. It's probably a couple of 100 yards. So I'm taking these trails, and they're four-wheel trails. And I'm walking down all of them. All of a sudden, I turn in to this one spot that goes down a hill, down a ridge, and then I hunt this leaning tube that's at this bottom. So when I turned and I felt something kind of weird, kind of tingling, I said, I don't know what, I've just got this chill down my spine. So I start walking down this trail and everything. And I get up in this leaning tube and I sit down. As soon as I sit down, I hear this creak, like this, like it's like the leaning tube moved and it creaked a little bit. All of a sudden, my left, something got up and walked away. Now, this wasn't a deer. Deer, if you spooked them or whatever, they're going to get up, they're going to run out of there, okay? You can hear the four legs running. This thing got up like a human, but big, really big, and it walked away. So when I got finished with my hunt, I was creeped out the whole time. All I have is a little bitty headlight. I'm looking around this, basically little bitty dim headlight. I'm looking around, and I got my gun and my rifle, my 30-06, and I'm look like this. I'm like, oh my God, if this thing comes here, I'm gonna be ready for it. But it didn't. He walked away. So I walked back to where I heard this sound come from, and there's this tree that has limbs. If the limbs are growing out long. And they're wide, almost like a sycamore tree. The sycamore tree has big limbs on it. I mean, the big leaves and everything.
Yeah.
This thing was laying up under there, and I'd seen like a big oval, like almost like an egg, where it'd been laying at. And this area was huge. It was really, really big. And I didn't know what to think about that. And so that was probably about 2018, something like that. So 2019 rolls around, okay? Muzzleloading season comes around. So muzzleloading season, for people don't know what that is, it's basically you have a black powder gun. You put black powder in it, you shove a bullet in there, and then you gonna have one shot. And so you shoot, and it's a one shot, one kill if you can do that. And if you have your gun set up right, you're probably gonna practice a little bit, you'll be successful. And so anyways, I was in this one box stand. Now the box stand, these type of box stands we have in this one area are on the ground. And so there's three sides to it. There's a shooting lane in front of me. There's what we call a shooting lane to the left, and there's a shooting lane to the right. The one in front of me is about 125 yards, goes down a hill, comes back up a hill, okay? The one to the other side, it's probably about 65 or 75 yards that way, and to my right, it's about 65 yards, okay? So the one to the left, all of a sudden I see this deer come out. So when it comes out, I said, okay, so I lift the little window that they have there. I take what's called a muzzle loader. I take my muzzle loader, I lay it there, and it has open sights on it. So I line it up, bam, I shot where the deer goes down. I said, well, I got this deer, So I waited for it, didn't move it. So I went to walk out the back door. I reloaded my gun, started walking to it. All of a sudden, the deer does this, look, uprights and takes off. Huh. Remember what I just said? The deer uprighted and took off. I was like, my God, man, that's weird. I said, that's crazy. Wow. Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what happened here for things that people don't understand and don't know. The Sasquatch have ability to cloak. That means they go invisible. So what this creature did was it went over there after I shot it, picked the deer up like a purse and took off and ran off with it. Now, back then I didn't know what happened, but now I know. Really, really weird, really creepy. Now, I mean, when I say this thing was fast, if they wanted to get you, they are so fast that they're faster than any Olympic runner that we have, and strong, extremely strong. They picked that whole deer up. The head was hanging down. The deer, the legs were dangling.
So it was like obviously limp, and it was just kind of floating in the air.
Yes.
Wow.
Now you can understand. Before 2009, that's 2018. Okay, I mean, it was 2019 at muzzleloading season. So I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. So my cousin said, "You hit it." See, I shot the deer. I said, "Went down," and I said, "He got back up." I said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it got back up." So he said, "Well, we're coming with the dogs. We're gonna come look for it." Went and ran all in the woods and everything. He said, "Would you go in the woods?" I said, "I walked right here a little bit." He said, "No, don't ever go in the woods. We're not to shoot him." He said, "The dog will pick up the scent and everything." So the way they looked at it was, I messed up the trail scent. Okay, so I just accepted it. All right, whatever, no big deal.
Yeah.
So next week comes around, right? Now, let me explain something about the area around there. It's very, very dense. And I think I sent you a picture of that, right?
Yeah. It was.
Okay, so we're going to look at that. Very, very dense, very thick. You and I couldn't walk through it. There's no dadgum way we could walk through this stuff. It's really, really, really thick, okay? Really bad. And so the next week comes around. Well, I'm ready. It's rifle season. Okay. So sure enough, I go out there, I get my rifle, and I'm sitting in a box stand. And went that morning, nothing happened. Come back that evening at 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay. Take my rifle, put it in the corner. Not a lot happens. It's about 5:30 when I get there. It's still pretty warm outside, you know. And so I actually went over there in short sleeve shirts and stuff, you know, and just my camo pants and stuff like that, you know. And I was just sitting there playing with my phone, actually. So I was sitting there playing my iPhone. I also get this high-pitched noise. Okay, I'm in the same box stand. I get this high-pitched noise coming to my ears. So my head's actually doing like this. Have you ever had that happen before? You get a high-pitched noise?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Get this. So that happened, right? All of a sudden, my rifle in the corner starts vibrating, and it starts moving down. So I reach over and grab it while I have my iPhone in my right hand. All of a sudden, at the same time, I see something moving in the woods over there in the thicket. So I turn like this, and I look at it, and I zoom in on it best I could, and I took a picture. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, what in the world is it? It looks like a stump. So I take my binoculars, and I pick up, and I start looking at it. And all of a sudden, it looks like a person in a ghillie suit. Now, the horror in my mind when I seen that thing, you know, 2000, whatever it was, back before 2009. Yeah. So it had to be, I don't know when it was, but that came back to my mind instantly like this. I'm like, oh my God, what is this thing? So then I take my rifle and I pick it up and I look at it. And as soon as I look at it, I see this black person that's got all his skin, that's got real thick hair and dreadlocks. It's coming down. It's got thick hair coming down. There's this big hair, then up under, it's like an undercoat, okay? And I knew immediately what it was. Its eyes were yellow and orange. Wow. And I just sit there looking at it with my scope, and all of a sudden this thing to its left moves. So I move my gun over and I start looking at it. Well, this thing here next to it has two pointy ears, has a long snout on it, and it has a dog's head, but it has a man's body. Now, the shoulders and all that, all this looks just like if you were to take your dog and stand it up, you take your dog and stand it up, and it looks like the hair and stuff on it looks just like that, okay? All this is gray and black, but this right across here is black, and all this in here is gray. And this thing just sits there and looks at me, and all of a sudden it makes it like a grimace face at me like this. What in the hell? At that point, it mind speaks to me what they call a universal language. So I didn't know anything about telepathy. I didn't know anything about mind speak. I didn't understand any of the stuff before this time, okay? I've never had anything happen like that. Only thing close to that I've had to that being a Christian is I've prayed before, and I've heard, you hear something from God when you pray, if anybody's ever had that experience. If you're truly a born-again Christian, you're going to hear from God. That's the only thing I can explain it. That's the only way I can relate it. It was like that, but not the same, okay? When that happened, I froze. And what it told me was, put the gun down. I'm going to come over there and tear that building up and kill you. And I'm like, I'm froze. I don't know what to do. Oh, so at the same time, I'm just froze with the gun like this, but I don't have my finger on the trigger. The same time, the Bigfoot turns to it and starts talking to it. Now, this is the weird thing. When that Bigfoot made eye contact with me, I can't explain this. I still to this day, I can't explain it. But it did something to me. And I don't know how to explain this. But it was like something transferred, and I could hear them talking after that. And so the Bigfoot was arguing with it. He's not trying to kill us. He's not trying to hurt us. Don't say that to him. Don't do that to him. And the Dogman's going back and forth with him. And I started just thinking in my mind. I started thinking to it in my mind, saying, hey, my finger's not on the trigger. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just looking at you. And so they're kind of talking, going back and forth. And also this other audible voice says, get out now. Wow. So I instantly put the gun down, put the phone in my pocket, grab my backpack, put it on, and I just get out of there. I start moving. But the whole time I'm looking around, I got my finger basically on the trigger, walk around, looking. Okay. So I'll go all the way back to where my golf cart is parked. And it's probably, now the weird thing is this. The weird thing is on the way walking out, I walk out to the right. I have to parallel where they are, okay, to walk out. They followed me out. They followed me out. So when they started walking out, it was more than one. I could hear at least 3 or 4 of them walking together, and they were all walking. It was heavy, really, really heavy. They were breaking bush. They were breaking, just limbs and stuff, walking through and all that. And when I could hear, at that same time, I'm walking out. I'm walking quick, okay? I'm not running, but I'm walking quick. But the whole time I'm looking back, I'm looking around, I'm looking at them. I'm kind of looking behind me in case something comes. I get on my golf cart, and what's funny is my golf cart is parked toward the woods where they are. So I just sit there with my finger on the trigger, and I hear my cousin come around on his four-wheeler. So he never stops. He just comes on around and zooms past me. So I crank up, and I told him when I got there, I looked at him and I said this. I said, look, y'all may kill me today. I said, but I promise you this, I'm going to kill at least 2 or 3 of y'all. And I said, you will for the pain of this 30-06. Y'all been in here. Obviously, you've been in here. And I said, you know what it'll do. I said, don't come out because I'm going to start blasting y'all. They never came out. And then I cranked it up, turned around and hauled tail out of there. And when I got back to my cousin's house, I was pretty shook up. I was really shook up. And I was expected to stay, the whole weekend and everything, but I couldn't. I just couldn't stay. So I told him, so look, some things came up. I got to go. I said, do what? So we fixing to eat dinner. Come on, man.
You didn't tell him exactly what happened.
I told him nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I didn't tell him anything. I said, I got to go. So I packed all my stuff up, threw it in a truck, and man, I just boogie on home to South Louisiana, okay? So I get home, and as soon as I get home, my wife's like, what are you doing home? Like, something happened. She goes, what? So I said, pause the TV. I said, I got to tell you something. So she said, what do you mean? I said, something happened to me. And she goes, what? What are you doing? So I said, I got to sit down and tell you what happened. So I told her the whole story and everything. She was just like, what? I said, yeah. I said, they're real. They're very real. And so after that, I went into research mode. Now, this is the kicker.
Before we get to that, I just want to ask you a couple of quick questions about the features of the Bigfoot.
Please ask me.
Was the Bigfoot features, did it look like Neanderthal or any primate-like at all?
It looked just like a black person. When I say black, not an African American, black, like the ones from Africa that are black. When I say black, I mean black. The skin was very, very oily. The eyes looked just like eyes. Its facial hair was around here. It never showed me its hands. It was squatted down. When I seen it, it was squatted down. In the picture that I sent you can see the knees, and I'll explain all that to you. Mm-hmm. Its arms were sitting in his knees, and its hand, I couldn't tell if it was a male or female because his hands were between its legs, like it was covering its private parts or something, And it was just sitting there. And the other thing was up tall. And when we start looking at pictures, I'm going to give you details about what's in those pictures and stuff.
Right
so,
on.
It's really, really interesting, But
I would definitely say so.
Oh, yeah. And so I went into research mode after that, but the story doesn't stop there. It keeps going. So my cousin, I went back a couple of weeks later, still kind of weird out, but I just felt like I wasn't scared anymore. I just said, okay, if they want to kill me, they want to kill me, right? I said, maybe they left the area. So I came back, and sure enough, that weekend, it's funny, is I shot an 8-point. So when I came into the woods, I said, look, this is what I started doing. I said, look, I know y'all here. And I said, I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want you to hurt me. So I said, I just want to make peace with y'all, okay? And I said, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to shoot you, and I don't want you to, come attack me and hurt me either. So I said, if you would, just let me shoot my deer, and I'm going to be out of here. So I went on in the woods, never heard a peep, never heard a squat, never heard anything. I get on this one particular box stand, and sure enough, that morning, the 8-point starts walking up, and bam, got him.
Nice.
And so that let me know that they weren't there to hurt me. Now, one key thing to remember that I've heard from other hunters and stuff like this is this: if you get into a situation like that, do not point your gun at them. Don't ever point your gun at them.
Right.
But I'll go on to, it was about the springtime. They had decided to cut the trees on our lease. And we were all upset and everything, because we had a really good lease. It was thick. We knew where to hunt at. There was plenty of valleys. There was plenty of ridges. There was plenty of hardwoods. And it was water around there. There was big creeks and stuff that ran all the time. So we were really happy with our lease. They decided we'd come through and cut all of us. I said, well, it is what it is, I said, go ahead. So anyway, one Saturday morning in the springtime, I can't remember exactly when it was. It might be on the picture or some pictures I sent you. But anyways, I'm sitting there drinking my coffee. I had a rough week and everything at work. And I'm just sitting there, got up that morning drinking my coffee. All of a sudden, again, high-pitched noise first, this left side. All of a sudden, I get this same thing, but I didn't see anything. It comes to me and says, why did you destroy my home? And at first I was a little freaked out. And I said, well, first of all, I didn't destroy your home. I said, that's not our land. I said, that's why you just see us there. You see me particularly there every now and then. And I said, I only go up there about maybe 5 or 6 times a year. So we actually, what we call lease the land. It's not our land. We pay money to go hunt there. We just hunt the deer or the hogs. And I said, then we get our harvest and we get out of there. And I said, it's like I felt it. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. It's like a spirit of depression came over this entity and it left. And there's something to be said about that, because there are good ones and there's bad ones, right? I think there are some evil ones out there, and I think there's some really, really good ones. And after doing my research and stuff, I've come to believe that they're a race of people just like us. So since then, we've had a lot of things happen. Do they follow you home? 100% they follow you home. If you're a good person, I believe they'll protect you. I've had them protect us before. My wife had hip surgery, and she called me from work after she had her hip surgeries. And she said, something's going on. I said, what you mean? She said, I woke up from a nap, taking my medicine and all that. And she said, the track lighting in the kitchen is turned. I said, what do you mean it's turned? She said, 3 of the lights are pointing toward me. And she says, there's also 3 orbs in the house now. I said, do what? She said, yeah. She sent me the picture. So I'm like, oh my God. So all this stuff starts compounding. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more you go down this rabbit hole, it just compounds. It just keeps going.
Yes, it's definitely something that's like a layered onion that you have to try and get to the bottom of, and it seems like it's never ending. I've had plenty of Bigfoot researchers on that have had similar types of accounts as far as the Bigfoot phasing in and out of reality somehow, and the psychic communication and orbs, but not to the extent that you've had. So this is very fascinating.
So I'd like to tell you a little bit more. So I started trying to communicate with them. Okay, like when you pray to God, you wait, you listen, and you get a response, right? You know, for those people who pray and have a relationship with Jesus Christ. So I started doing the same thing. So I just started trying to, talk to them. I said, I would what you call meditate or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I asked them, and they came and talked to me. So just in the spiritual realms, all I can say. So I asked them, I said, look, I want to ask y'all some questions. They said, okay, ask us questions. I said, all right. I said, is there a God? They said, yes. Real quick answers. Okay. I said, is Jesus real? They said, yes. So I'm like, wow. Okay. So I'm like, wow, this is this. Okay. So I said, well, I'm having a hard time really comprehending this stuff. And they said, it's not what you believe. It's what you're willing to accept. I said, okay. They said, you can believe, you don't have to believe things to accept, And I'm like, wow, that's pretty deep. I said, oh yeah. So it's like, I don't have to know how a computer works. I don't know as I press a button, it comes on, right? You just accept that it works. All right. We don't understand how, Zoom works, but here it is, it's working. I don't comprehend the whole thing, but I know if I press on this link, then here we are talking, So I thought that was pretty awesome. So I'll share the latest thing with you. There's a lot of things that happened in between. Me and my wife were sitting cooking one Saturday morning, was cooking kitchen, and we had a thing like Star Trek come down in between us. And it like shimmered, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. I'm like, whoa. I looked at her, she looked at me. I said, okay, they came to visit, Also during the wintertime, I think it was last winter, we had a pretty cool winter here. I felt like something was around, and it was cold. It was back when Texas had all the pipes burst and everything. We had that weird cold front come through down here, and it passed Texas and came over to us. And I went outside, and Dana went outside. My wife went outside first, and she said, there's a footprint out here. I said, do what? I said, who in their right mind would be out in 30-degree weather down here and with a foot, and barefoot? She goes, no, come here, you got to see it. I said, okay. So I went out there and looked, and sure enough, on the side of the house in the mud, it rained and stuff, and it was cold. They had a footprint. It was deep in the mud right next to our house, but it wasn't that big. It was only about a little bit bigger than my foot, but it was wide. It was like this. I said, man, that is really, really crazy. So I was like, okay, well, they're all around us now. And they haven't tried to hurt us or anything. So I thought that was pretty, we formed I formed a relationship with them. Right. And I respect them. The main thing is, if people want to try to approach them the main thing is respect. Now, think of it like this.
I was just going to say, one of the
ahead.
things from my childhood growing up, I remember some of my elders talking about is the Rougarou, and they described
That's
it
a
as,
Dogman.
yes, like a
Yes,
werewolf type creature.
it
Now,
is.
are these beings more aggressive, would you say, than the Bigfoots?
Well, my experience with them, yes. So I'll tell you about one more experience that I had up there, and it happened in the past since 2019. My dad gave us our family land that we had up there, so me and my wife began to basically do a lot of work and stuff up there. We had a big pad made, and we put down electricity, and we put down the water, and we're going to make us a mini campground up there. So whenever we began to do all the work up there, I just put all the clay and everything down, a bunch of red clay and stuff, a lot. So we had that thing leveled off and everything. And my cousin said, look, you really need to get some seed when you come and bring it up here and put it on that, or it's all going to wash away when it rains. So I said, okay, I'll take care of it. So I only got 2 bags of seed. So I went hunting that Sunday evening, didn't see anything. So I came back in a little early. I knew I had to plant the seed before I went home. And so I got the cedar and I'm walking behind it and everything. All of a sudden I look over in the national forest, which is right next to our property. There's a big hill up there. And so I seen something running down this hill. It was coming across like that, and it was black. I'm like, what in the world? It's maybe just dark. And I mean, it's probably a big old deer or something. That thing was coming. I said, good Lord, that thing's coming down through the woods. And it was big. It was heavy, running. Boom, boom. Then I said, God, dog, it's hitting all kind of trees and everything. Then it stopped. It come across on our property, jumped the road right there and come across our property. It's a little 1-lane road, but it jumped the entire road, went on our property, went in the bottom that we have there in the creek where there's 2 creeks at, come back on the bottom, out of the bottom, and was sitting there looking at me. And he got down, it was like on all fours, and squatted down like that on all fours. And it was all black. And I'm like, what in the hell is this? At the same time, my cousin came in, they went to church that evening, Sunday evening. They turned in and it looked at the truck. Then it looked back at me and looked at the truck and looked at me. And I'm like, oh no, I had enough of this. I just flipped it over. And I just threw the cedar down and just turned my back to it and basically walked off. But I was letting it know that I wasn't afraid of it, you know. Yeah. But it never did try to come attack me or anything else. But this thing was big. It was at least 6 to 7 feet long, you know, and solid black. And the eyes didn't glow or anything like that. But basically, its face looked like a huge wolf, is what it looked like, a really, really big wolf. And we don't really have wolves in North Louisiana. We don't have all that, you know. But this thing was big.
That's incredible, man. Now, have you had any experiences with officials trying to find out about this information? Maybe, clandestine groups, 3-letter agencies?
Maybe I'm not popular enough yet, you know, but
right.
Eventually my story.
Well, that's a good thing so far, I guess.
I don't know if they come talk to me. I'd love to talk to them and ask them this stuff. And most of them try to shut you up, but I tell them, say, hey, let me go to work for them. Let me go to work with you. I talk to them and they talk to me. If they want to know about this stuff, I mean, I'm sure the federal government knows about this stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they know a lot more than they would ever let on. And it's probably not in our best interest to get them involved or the cryptid creatures.
Well, there's too much out there now. You know, doing my research and what I've seen and everything, there's way too much out there. That's way, way, way too much out there. There's more than that. I mean, there's mermaids, there's all kind of stuff out there, you know, that people hush and don't talk about. Once you open up about your story, though, people start telling about other things like I don't know, lizard men and stuff like that, and reptilians and all this other kind of stuff. There's a lot of different things out there.
I just had a guest the other day that was talking about how there are groups of people that understand what the Bigfoot are, and that they are just indeed humanoids that have these abilities that we've lost, that have these consciousness abilities and what we'd call magic and abilities to either cloak and manipulate matter in the form of orbs and lights and things like that. So it's incredible that these are just an ancient species of humans that have great consciousness abilities, it seems.
Well, I believe that 100%. And from what I've learned and what I know, just talking to them, they were here before us. So if you can accept that, not what you believe is what you accept.
Right.
So you don't have to believe anything I say. I mean, that's up to you. Go out, do your research, go try to contact them, find out, you know, because to me, I know what's happened to me and I know what they tell me. They tell me they were here before humans were here.
Man, I tell you what, next time I go down to Louisiana to visit my folks, I would love to pass through your area and see what they got going on for sure.
Oh yeah.
Now,
So
go ahead.
go ahead. Yeah. So there was one incident I was going to tell you about that happened within 5 miles of my house. This is not my story, but somebody else's story. And I thought that was pretty ironic.
Mm-hmm.
There was a person that was working at night doing a security job. And I'm not going to give any names or anything, but this person was sitting in their security car. And all of a sudden they felt something looking at them. They turned to the left and there was a ravine right there. And looking eye to eye with them was the tallest, biggest black man. When I say black, I mean tar black, covered with hair, muscular like a. He said it was bigger than a bodybuilder. It was like a god. He said it was so huge. It was just huge.
Yeah.
And he said he couldn't believe it. He could not believe his eyes. And all of a sudden it stood there and locked eyes with him for just a few seconds, and it turned and ran through the woods there. And that's only 5-6 minutes from my house.
Man.
Like I said, we live in South Louisiana. So
yeah.
Below Baton Rouge.
That is awesome. Now, I've had, I've had plenty of relatives and people tell me that they've had similar experience, not to like I said, not to the extent that you've had with seeing wild men and things of that nature in the woods. What other types of creatures do you think they're existing out there?
I think there's a whole lot of stuff that we haven't seen yet, and we're not being told it's out there. I mean, if you're a Christian like I am, and you read your Bible, I mean, go to the book of Job and see what all's in there. I mean, all through the Old Testament talks about stuff. You know, there's Leviathan, there's unicorns, there's goat-headed men, there's just all kind of stuff. You know, it's there. You just got to go read.
Yeah, man.
And then you make a conscious decision for yourself. Did all these things get killed after the flood? Is it still there? I mean, basically, God killed everything on the earth when the flood came, except for the fish.
Our world is definitely more fascinating than most people will ever know. I think it's a good time to pull up your pictures now, and we'll go through them, and you can just tell us what we're looking at here.
So if you look at this picture, I'm pointing at a tree that's broken over the road that basically leads to our deer lease, okay? And as you can see, that broken tree, there's no broken pine trees about it, but that is an oak tree, a young oak tree that is about 5 or 6 inches, and it's been snapped about 8 foot up. Now, when I say it's broken, it's snapped. It's not broken off. It's just snapped, and it's crossing the road. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you see in this picture besides that? Take a look. It's right there in front of you.
Let's see. Are those the tracks? Big,
yes.
Wow, that's ginormous.
Now I'm going to tell you something right now. I've asked probably 50 people this question. You are the only person ever picked it up.
Oh, really? Yeah, I can see it. They're pretty obvious, and they're huge.
Thank you. They are huge. So if you look to the right, that is basically a female. If you look to the left, that's the male's tracks. And what he's done is he's walked in. He's got over into the woods, walked over and snapped that tree. Now she has walked on the right-hand side, and she's walked to the right and went into the woods.
Yeah, I see it, man. It's pretty obvious.
So the stories that I tell are my experiences. They're not stories, but they're actually experiences that I've done, and this is what I have, and I back everything up with a picture.
Wow. All right. What do we see in here?
So this is the what I told you in, was that 2017, I believe, or 18? That is that deep track of the one footprint that's long and big and skinny. And I've even circled it for you. There's a yellow circle right there, and you can see the toes in the top. The top left is the big toe going straight across to the small toes. Okay, so that was pretty big. I say, okay. I'm looking at something right now in my house. So you know how they have an air conditioner register that your air blows out of on your wall and stuff like that, your roofs. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's in your ceiling. Your ceiling. It was that big.
Man, I remember those. Yeah. Wow. All right, what do we got here?
Okay, so that is actually the Bigfoot right there. And if you look, you'll see and right in the center of the picture, there's some big green leaves there. Yeah. See the big green leaves going across this right there? Yeah. Now, if you look right below that, you'll see something black. Right above it, you'll see something black. Right above it is the Bigfoot's head and its face. If people can see it or whatever, what it is the knees are down here at the bottom. Okay, about halfway up in the picture. If you look in the center of the picture, you'll see some black things, 2 black things, and right above that, you're going to see a head. That's its face. That's what I seen when I took the picture with my iPhone. To the right of it, if you're looking at the picture, you'll zoom up just a little bit. and you'll see a dog's face. Now, actually, in this picture is actually 2 dog faces. There's one that's black and gray to its right, lower, about even with the Bigfoot. There's actually a big gray one there too.
What I'll do is I will show a zoomed in version after I edit this, so the audience will be able to see it.
Yeah, you should. I think I put another one in there. You can scroll across and see if we got some more pictures and see.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is my hunting stand that we were in. You can see how thick the area is, and so that's the box stand I was hunting in.
Okay.
Okay, this is interesting. On our land that we had up there, I started clearing it all out, but I had something tell me to stop. And I'm like, why? I said, why am I stopping? They said, this is a language. This is what we use as a language. I said, what? I said, yes. So you look at the trees, people say, oh, that's caused, the trees, bow trees are caused by frost or something like that. That's not true. They take these trees and they bend them over. Okay. Then if you look at the ground on the side right there, you'll see some sticks leaning against it, right?
Yeah.
The triangle.
Yeah.
Kind of strange, isn't it? Now, I haven't touched that land, and nobody goes on my land over there. We respect each other. Nobody fools with all that stuff. But if you look at the ground, you'll see them laid in different particular ways, too. That's an actual language.
Right on. I've heard that before. Yeah,
okay.
Cool.
Yes, sir. There again, more bowed trees. They're bent over. Look at the other pine trees around it. They're not bowed over, not broken. They're not bent. They're just bowed over, okay? So if you see that in the woods, you're getting close to them. They're in that area. So right here is a picture that I took of the woods again, and I actually have somebody did this for me. I said, yeah, I feel like there's something here, but I can't see it. And so what they did is they went on their iPhone. They have an app where they can magnify things and circle it. So what they did was they found all these faces in there, and they circled all of them, magnified them, so and brought the faces out.
Any identifiable creatures in there? I mean, it's hard to kind of tell. It's very camouflage looking, but is there anything that you identify as like a Bigfoot?
Yes, the Bigfoot, if I remember this picture right, I can't see because it's too small. If you go up top to the right, can you see that picture at all? Is it better for you?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see it now. And I also see the bottom one has a very Bigfoot-like face. Okay.
So there's a couple of Bigfoot in that one. There's a couple of Dogmen in there too. So you'll see it. Okay. Now this is
my favorite here.
Okay. Now you as an editor, what do you see in this picture?
Man, I see it. It's like it reminds me of the movie Predator. Whenever the things
sir.
Like, bubbling in and out of reality. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So let me explain something to you. A while back, I talked to a director that has recently put out a documentary on Bigfoot. They're actually in Oregon, him and his wife. And me and my wife talked to him for a long time. And I pulled this picture up and I actually sent it to him. I said, look at this. He said, oh, my God. He said, you got it. I said, yes, I did. I said, this was running in front of my camera and I snapped it. And I said, I've got pictures. I was just snapping pictures of our land and stuff like that because I want to be able to take a look at the land, say I want to clear it off, what we're going to do and all that, okay? Now, here's a weird story behind this one. When I took this picture, now my iPhone is jacked up. And I keep my iPhone like that so I can share the story. If I look at me in the iPhone, turn it back toward me, it's fine. But if I put it toward that way, the screen shakes. The actual photo screen shakes. Now, it vibrates.
Wow.
So I've actually caught one that's over 8 foot tall right there that's ran right in front of me. This is evidence of cloaking.
Yeah, that's cool.
So when you hear other people, other researchers, they don't do their flesh and blood, they always think, okay, stick to your story. That's what you want to believe. I've had them run out. I got even pictures of it. That's another picture right there. Cloaking.
Where are we looking here?
Okay, it's another thing. Like you'll see take a look at the picture. Part of the picture is going to be fuzzy, and the other picture is going to be clear. That's where it's at. Can you see the difference?
Oh, okay. It's on the right side, right?
Yes, sir. So look at the picture where it's clear, then where it's fuzzy at, that's it coming across. Right. This thing was so quiet and so fast, I didn't even know what happened. It came right in front of me. Okay, this is actual nest. So that's what that is. That's a nest.
A nest for Bigfoot?
Baby Bigfoot, small Bigfoot. Yeah. So you see a little hole right there?
Yeah.
Okay, so the hole on the left goes in, it turns to the left, and they throw all kind of stuff on it. They actually take trees, bend them over, put broken limbs and leaves and sticks.
And there's no other animal in that area that would be doing this, right? That's kind of like
let me ask you a crazy question. You ever seen a fox build something like that?
I have not, no.
Now, maybe a squirrel. Okay, that'd have to be a big squirrel.
Yeah, that'd be a very big squirrel. Yeah.
So let me tell you something about this nest. You're gonna laugh at this.
Yeah.
I could actually crawl inside that thing. That's how big it is.
Man. Yeah, I don't know if there's any wild pigs or anything that are going to be doing that either. So.
No, they don't. They just make a wallow. So I've got a story about that too. I seen me and my cousin were scouting one time, and we seen that, and as actually these shrubs, and there was a spot about 3 foot wide, what I call a wallow or a low spot in the sand and the mud that was there. It was by a creek, but these shrubs were about 6 foot tall, and there were no tracks around it, but there was hair marks in that mud. And I told my cousin, I said, "Come here, look at this." And we were just scouting for deer and tracks and stuff like that. I said, "Come here, check this out." He looked over and said, "Oh, that's just pigs." I said, "Okay, if it's pigs, where are the hoof prints at? Show me the hoof prints." He said, "I don't know. Come on, let's keep going." So we left that area. He's all about deer. Yeah. I ain't worried about that. No, let's go find some deer. Come on. So I said, "Okay." You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Those type of people. I don't care about all that. I don't care about. Let's go. Right. All right, let's go find some deer.
Yeah, there's tons of people like that.
I was just laughing. I thought it was funny. Okay, so this is my grandmother's house, and it goes to show you how it was just board and bat and stuff like that. And so it's about to fall down now. Last time we seen it was a couple of years ago. I went up there, went by and seen it, but they had cleared all the forest around that area too. And there was, oh my God, it was probably 80 to 100 acres they cleaned out. Look at this real wood, this wood inside this thing. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Logs.
Yeah.
So that's how old this thing is. It was actually a log cabin. It was also a log cabin in Louisiana, North Louisiana. And they put board on it. Now, she didn't have the insulation. This thing. I remember going there when it was cold. And my God, that poor lady. I don't know how she lived in there. I don't know how my mom and her brothers were raised in this thing. They used to tell me stories about they could see the stars at night through the roof. And I'm like, y'all pulling our leg. Well, we said, okay, that's true. So that goes back to that track again I sent.
What is your understanding now, based on all the evidence that you know? You said that you believe that there are indeed benevolent entities that reside there and malevolent, right?
Right. I would say there are two types there. There are the good ones. There are the bad ones. Okay. Most of the bad ones, they're not accepting what they call a clan. They're not accepting to a group or family. They're kicked out. And I think they have a bad side to them. And the dog people, the dog men, I don't trust them at all. I mean, I don't care if there's good ones or bad ones. You have some that just look. But once they get bad stuff like that, I think they're just bad. I think they will attack. If you take a look at all the accounts that are North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, land between the lakes and all that. There's some stories over there. Virginia, West Virginia, there's some stories about, dogmen attacking and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you, if you've heard about many accounts of people being attacked by these creatures.
Yes. Since I've got into this, I've made a lot of friends with people all over the United States, basically all over the world. And I stay in contact with them pretty often right now. So that's what I do. I do a lot to stay with them. I'd like to give you one account that's in your area where you're from, if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Holton, Louisiana. So a friend of mine lives over there, and I talked to him. And he said, he said, my father-in-law's commercial fisherman. I said, oh, really? He said, there's a place called Bateman Island down there. I said, okay, I'll look it up. He said, yeah. He said he was coming in from catching his fish. And he came around that. It was kind of in the evening time, the sun was setting, so it was about the sun. So he's going to go down. He come around this island and said, one of those things were standing there. I said, what you mean? He said, like a Rougarou. I said, it was just standing there on the bank. It was kind of squatted down when he came around. He looked up at it, looked at him. He kept on going, and he said, just put his head back down like it was trying to catch a fish or something like that.
Damn.
Bateman Island.
Right. Man,
so that tells me right there that they live all on the coast and stuff. And I also had another video, trying to remember the name of the video, but it's on YouTube, and it basically has a young man, and he uses some pretty foul language and stuff in there. But anyways, it's around that area of Delacroix, I believe is the name of it. It's between Booty and Homa. That's where it's at.
Okay.
But anyways, he's up in the swamp and stuff. He's in a boat, and they are bow fishing. And he does have a really, really, really good video of a dog man standing above the reeds. Now, you know how tall those reeds are out there, right?
Yeah.
The grass and stuff
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
out in Houma. About how tall they get.
Oh, they can get well over 6 feet.
Okay. So this thing is standing above 6 feet. And you can see its yellow eyes. You can see the shape of its head. You can see it looks like a dog. You can see the big ears and stuff, but it's big. This thing is big. So that's down in y'all's area where you're from.
Man. These are incredible stories, Scott. I mean, we're gonna have to have you back on and go over some more.
I'd love to. Thank you so much.
You have ongoing research that you're doing on these creatures.
I like I said, when you get to the point where I'm at, where you communicate with them, yes, all the time. I do a lot of research. Well, now it's a communication thing is more of a mind speak, a universal language that I do with them. Not all the time. It's not every day. Now, don't think I go and meditate with them, like some people sit on top of a mountain or something like that. I don't do that. It's just whenever they feel something or feel something with me or something like that. Like Labor Day, I was supposed to go up to North Louisiana and I'd actually gotten sick. I couldn't go and I was really bummed out. So, I was just kind of just thanking God for my health and everything. And so I was really upset. And all of a sudden one came to me and it's like it gave me a vision basically. And what it was, I was sitting in a lawn chair. And it came down and sat next to me and it looked over at me and it said, why are you so afraid of us? I said, are so intimidated by us. And I said, you're big. And I said, you kind of look like a gorilla sometimes. It's kind of frightening. And he said, oh, okay. And he said, would it be better if we look more human? I said, yeah, it'd be a lot better. I said, you look just like a human with a lot of hair, And he said, oh, okay. And he turned. And I mean, when he turned to look forward, the sun was going down behind us and the sun's rays were coming through its hair. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It was just incredible.
Man, I'm so glad that you're coming out with these stories, especially talking about how the communication and the psychic communication between these beings. I've had more and more people come out, and I think we need these collaborating stories so people understand that this is a real phenomenon, how crazy it is. These humanoids, whatever they are even dogmen, cryptic creatures, they're out there, and they have ways to communicate, and they're very intelligent, right?
Yep. Well, the main thing I say about this is that if they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them. So people go out and beat the woods. They try to go find them and all that. You're not going to find them. If you walk out there and you're humble, first thing is be humble. Second thing, when you walk into an area where you see bowed trees and stuff like that, or broken trees about 8 foot up, talk to them and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm Scott, I'm Scott Pace. And I just want to introduce myself to you. I'm not here to hurt you or your family. And if you'd like to talk to me, I'd like to talk to you,
Do you think these guys are everywhere, like across the planet, even in not so remote areas, just beyond the spectrum of our vision? Maybe not even in these remote swamp or forest areas.
They can be anywhere they want to. Let me just put it like that, okay? So they can be anywhere they want to.
Right.
So another story I have for you real quick before we go.
Yeah.
I was hunting this one box stand one time and I kept seeing these flashes in front of me. It's a long shooting lane and it goes down to a creek and I kept seeing these flashes. And I'm like, man, what in the world is that? And all of a sudden out of my peripheral view of my right eye, I seen something move behind a tree. So I didn't turn and look. And again, it kept going by. Another flash went by. I said, man, that looks like a ghost or something going by. And all of a sudden this head sticks out. And this is a funny part. I turned to it real quick and I said, gotcha, just like that. And it's like it knew it had been had. So it just lined up with a tree, turned around, and walked away from him. And when it walked away, all I could see was his arms, and every now and then I see his legs and stuff. But it lined up with that tree and walked away from me. But I had it. I seen it. But what they had done is cloak, and it was running in front of me. And then all of a sudden, I don't know how they do it, but it was just this one come over. It was, I guess everybody else was walking through, and this one had turned and was looking at me. And so I just turned to it real quick and said, gotcha, like that.
That's awesome, funny. Man. Yeah, like I said, next time I come down to Louisiana, we were going to have to try and organize a meetup or something.
Let's do that. Incredible. I'll cook a jambalaya for you. How about that?
Oh, I'd love it. I miss some jambalaya and some good Cajun food for sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, Scott, this was great, man. We'll definitely going to have to do this again. I'd love to hear about more encounters and your insights into this phenomena.
I definitely have more to give, and I have more insights and a lot of little stories that I haven't told you yet. So, excellent. Since that time, we've had a lot of things happen to us, and they do follow you home. They can be anywhere they want to. So, it's amazing that how they operate, that they have a spiritual language that they use. It's a universal language. Also, they know who God is. They know who Jesus is. And the bad ones now, I'm sure there's some bad creatures out there. I haven't ran across them yet, but I do. Between you and I have something to protect myself with every time I go in the woods. So
these stories give me the feeling that they're not necessarily malevolent, but more protective of their territories.
They're very protective. They're very protective of us too. And I'll tell you, next time we get on, I'll tell you about a situation that happened here at the house. It was hilarious, and I had nothing to do with it. They just
we got time. We can hear it.
Oh God, this is funny. So these guys come and cut my grass, right? So they came over.
Yeah.
They went across the road, cut somebody else's yard first, and they came back over and they stopped. They were talking, drinking some water and stuff, some Gatorade. Then he started cutting our grass. Also, this guy's lawnmower just stops. So I was sitting there messing around, in my shop and stuff like that. And they both just threw up their hands like they didn't know what was going on. They lifted the seat up on the lawnmowers, went on 0 turns and stuff. So I walked over to them and said, "What's going on?" They said, "I think the motor blew up." And I said, "No, your motor didn't blow up." I said, "If I heard a boom or something like that, your motor would blow up." I said, "Let's just check it out." So I went and got me a little wire out of the shop, and I put it across the solenoid, and I jumped it out, made it turn. I said, "Ain't nothing wrong with this." I said, "Where's your fuses out on the thing?" I said, "I don't know." So I had to dig through a bunch of grass and stuff. That same time when that happened, we started moving fuses, I felt one walk up. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here, And so I pointed the fuse. I said, "Let's check this one." So sure enough, that was blown. The second one was blown. Okay. We got 2 fuses out of my shop, put in there for me, started cutting grass again. And so they mind spoke to me and told me, said, "Hey, call your mom next door." I said, "Okay." They never said anything else. So I called my mom, and it's like it just came to me. They said, ask her if she paid them. I said, "Mom," I said, "Did you pay them to cut the grass this time?" She said, "Yeah, I paid them." I said, "Well, I paid them too."
Man.
Get this. They were scheming us, okay? So they were trying to scheme us and get paid by me and my mom both without us finding out, because otherwise I wouldn't have called my mom. And so, she goes, "Oh, no." And she goes, they're going to cut it for free next time. So I started dying laughing.
Oh, man.
So that's how they protect you, okay?
Yeah.
That's how they protect you. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I love it.
Another thing was, as soon as my wife got home from surgery, we heard some noises outside like owls. She had just got home, and it was females that came by, and they were hooping and hollering at my wife, and they were woo, oh, woo, oh, woo, doing like that outside, just like owls, cutting up and going crazy and everything. And I told Dana, so they're here to make sure you're okay,
That's incredible,
so,
man.
I do have the pictures. Next time I get on, I'm going to send you the pictures about the inside of the house with the lights turned and the 3 orbs in the house. So I'd like to talk more about that too.
Yes, for sure, man. Scott, thank you so much. This was fantastic. We'll definitely do it again soon. And until next time, oh man, this was great. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.